we still have people from outside of our community still coming in to our community because we do have such a low number within this county and this area, the entire panhandle. So be mindful, everybody, be mindful that we do have people coming in that are not from here, that are coming from the hot spot area. That's all I have.
Yeah, they even our boat ramp being closed, they put the boat in at White City, Indian Pass, or Mexico Beach. That doesn't mean they're not coming into Piggly Wiggly and Dollar General and loading up the cart with groceries and stuff. They're here, they're staying at their vacation homes, and we're still subjected to those people. We can't really keep them out. We can try to limit them, which we've been trying to do, but we hope that our folks will be ever vigilant and continue their sanitizing and following the recommendations of the county health department and the CDC. Anybody else? Okay, the real purpose of this meeting, our boat ramp closure sunsets this afternoon. The purpose of the meeting is to discuss what we want to do going forward with the boat ramp. And with that, I'll open up the floor for comments.
Okay.
My concern is how we're going to go about doing it. We're going to police it to make sure certain people are, if we're going to do it against the Gulf County, how we're going to make sure that Gulf County is doing it, Gulf County citizens down there. That's my concern. And, because the police and that, they've been doing
You got your microphone there, over there, Mike. Oh.
Yeah, my concern is just the how we're gonna go about opening this back up if we decide to do so, and if we do, are we gonna open it up on the Gulf County residents? Is it lawful for us to do that? And how are we gonna police that? Because Matt, we got several calls this weekend about people gathering. Dispersed and really didn't have any more problems. But I just want to know how we're going to police this if we open this back up, and because it's going to be a lot of work on our officers. That's the only thing that I'm concerned about. I think that we're doing a great job at overall social distancing ourselves, and I think that I don't think that we should punish our citizens, continue to punish them with not allowing them to have some recreation time. But I also feel that it's the way that we need to go about opening this. We just don't need to rush into it. We need to think about how we're going to police it and things of that matter. That's my own concern.
Okay. Other comments?
I agree with the commissioner, and I had thought about the same issues. One thing that I had discussed is it actually started at our last meeting when the mayor suggested maybe the possibility of utilizing only Florida tags. So I talked to the chief a little bit about it because I had the same concerns you do, and wanted to know, was this going to increase the exposure to our either city staff giving out permits or the police officer that has to go and verify the tag. And the chief had said, and during our discussion, we thought about the possibility of putting a sign up or multiple signs that would say, the only people that can launch here at the St. Joe Boat Landing are people that have a valid Florida tag on both the vehicle and the trailer. That would stop going and borrowing a boat, or a car, and then launching a Georgia or Alabama boat. So if we did that, then I talked to the chief about exposure of the officers. I think that it would be very limited exposure based on Saturday, just under 80 people had launched at White City. Of the 80, only 6 were from out of state. It was by far Florida. Now, I don't know what part of Florida they came from, but that was encouraging, I thought. So the chief agreed. They thought that the number would be low enough that we could deal with. And the way that I would suggest that the officer would respond to, let's say, a vehicle that didn't have a tag, or a vehicle that had a Georgia or anywhere out of state Florida and did launch, they could enforce that by a notice to appear. You can file that directly through the state attorney's office instead of having contact with the owner of the vehicle. So that was an option that was discussed. I've said it every time this issue has come up, and I'll continue to say it. I'm all for opening the landing for a group of people that is small enough that we can handle. And I think the Florida tags would be within that. And as long as it does not increase exposure, risk exposure to anyone in City Hall, city staff, city workers, to include the police department. So that's where I'm at.
Okay.
Yeah, I'll just echo that, I was all for trying to find a way for our residents, our city and possibly county residents, and I'm fine with state residents, finding a way to keep that ramp open. But in unity with everybody here, I'm all ears and on how we all like to move forward.
Mayor, I have a comment.
Go ahead.
I agree with everything everybody has said, except for the Florida residents. There's hot spots in Florida that are just as unsafe as the other areas that we're trying to close down. I would be in complete support of reopening to the general public if we can mitigate the risk to our officers through PPE. But I would not be in favor of the entire state. I think that we can enforce just Gulf County as just as easily.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't think you can enforce that just as easily. One idea that was discussed was the decals we've been giving out. And I actually thought that was a good idea. You have to have the decal. That's either you live here,
That's a good idea.
for free, or you have the ability to vault that decal. The bad side of that is the decal looks the same for the person from Georgia that purchased the decal as it does for me who went down and got the free decal. So I don't think you can say it would be the same statewide. The only reason that I have agreed to and think there's some logic to the statewide deal is only because it decreases exposure to our officers. Because you can look at the tags, you don't have contact, but to have an officer down there verifying a driver's license for every person to launch, then they have to prove they live within the Gulf County area. No, that's a much higher exposure risk.
Yeah, I understand what you're saying. There's a way you could run tags. I don't want the police to have to run 50 tags. If we got 50 cars down there to run the tag and see if they're from Gulf County or out of the county, that might be pretty difficult. I wish probably the easiest to do is a state of Florida tag, and then they ride through there. If it's not a state of Florida tag, you get a notice to appear. But anyway, there's still a lot of discussion going on. Let me say this too while I'm on. If we have anyone out there on Zoom that would like to speak, if you would speak up, we'll try to find a place for you to speak. So we're learning on this platform, so bear with us.
It is.
Thank you.
To what we were talking about, residents of Gulf County, jurisdictions, counties, and municipalities all over the state have done that, including Franklin County. The problem being though, if you're going to set up an enforcement mechanism whereby you give people a notice to appear, it's gonna need to be done by ordinance. And you're gonna have signage letting people know that there is a penalty to this, and what the penalties are. It gets a little bit more involved.
What if you utilize the fact that they have violated the order from the governor? That was my train of thought, is that the charge would actually be the misdemeanor for violating the order given by the state of Florida.
Governor's order specifically said that hiking, fishing, boating, everything was okay. It doesn't say anything about our local boat ramp.
Clint, what about violation of an emergency order of the city of Port St. Joe? Basically, this closure was an emergency order of the city.
Well, what we did is we just closed. So there's no one down there, right? There's no police officer. If someone violates that, writing tickets or notice to appear or any enforcement mechanism, it's just simply, it's closed. They can't get in there.
But well, I mean, what I'm saying is they could still write a notice to appear for violation of an emergency order.
We'd have to be very specific as to what the violation was, what the penalties were, so on and so forth, what the ramifications were. I mean, and we need to have that signage at the boat ramp as well.
I mean, that would be no problem, get the signage, but as far as an ordinance, that's going to take time.
Well, county did the ordinance for the beaches, and they didn't involve first readings and second readings, basically an emergency ordinance.
Okay.
But we would need to write something specifically up, I believe, just to protect ourselves in terms of not just a motion here. The motion here, when we did an emergency to close the boat ramp, was just simply, the boat ramp's closed for 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Well, you didn't really need to get any specifics. There was no enforcement mechanism, no penalty for violating it. Just you couldn't get in there.
Why don't we think about this? We've got Tim Croft here with a star. We've got a regular meeting Tuesday. If we could have a motion to keep ramp closed for 7 more days, maybe alert the public that we're considering opening it under certain criteria, whether it be county residents, state residents, as well as there would be penalties, violations, notice to appear, that type thing. So, it would give us a little more time to chew on some of these ideas, as well as give you time to write have an ordinance. And that's just my thought, and my thought process coming here today was to maybe close it for another 7 days anyway, because I think we're still vulnerable to the coronavirus, highly vulnerable. And so I want to keep us on the edge as far as that goes, but it also at the same time give us time to let the public know, as well as you write an ordinance, and maybe we can come up with a consensus of what we want to do. Throw out the scenarios to the chief and the police department so they can, give their 2 cents worth about how it's going to impact them and those type things. I'd still like to hear more comments if I could.
Well, it's probably going to take a few days, I would guess, just to have the sign printed. And if we're going to look at opening it, regardless of who we open it to, we got to have the signage down there, indicate what we're going to do.
What's the ordinance going? Basically, what we're saying in this ordinance, just for Gulf County or the entire state, or
whatever you guys want to do. But it needs to have, what are the ramifications? What are the penalties if you violate this ordinance?
I think that's we need to make a decision. Is it just going to be Gulf County, or is it just going to be the entire state of Florida? I think that's something that we really need to think about.
I can craft it.
Yeah, I mean, you could craft, fill in the blank type ordinance, and we make a motion and agree on state or we agree on Gulf County, you could plug that in.
Yeah.
Okay.
If I was forced to make a decision today, I would vote against allowing the entire state. But if we give this another week, the situation could change, and maybe Florida residence is the way to go. But at this time, I would not be willing to do that.
All right, thank you.
Well, and I agree with Commissioner Ashcraft in the fact, Ashbrook, I'm sorry, in the fact that I would prefer it only to be Gulf County. It's just, can we figure out how to enforce just Gulf County and do it in a way that it's safe to our officers that have to be the ones down there?
Without having an officer right there.
Yeah,
checking
yeah.
ID.
And we make it
Is
safe.
this where,
County and then move forward with Gulf County residents. And obviously they're going to have Florida tags. You still could identify a Georgia tag. But the question you're gonna have to put in this ordinance or deal with now is, what about the person that owns property but lives in Atlanta, Georgia? I'm going to move and support the idea of permanent residents of Gulf County.
mhm.
I mine too. And I heard someone on Zoom trying to make a statement or a comment. Is anyone out there at this time besides?
Yes, sir.
Go ahead.
Yes, sir. I live here locally, Garrison
Identify
Avenue.
yourself first, please.
Yes, sir. My name is Jennifer Barwick, and I live at 1102 Garrison Avenue in Port St. Joe, Florida. I am a full-time resident. We also are small businesses, cleaning, vacation rentals, so obviously that shut down. And my husband is also a charter captain as well as a commercial fisherman. So as you can tell, we're completely shut down right now unless we travel outside of the area, which to me makes no sense for my family. So I do agree with, and I wanted to thank you guys for everything you're doing. I agree with a lot of what you're saying this morning, and it makes a lot of sense, especially Gulf County. But is there a way to get these permits maybe so that some of us can go back to work? Because in this household, there's two of us shut down. And supporting local businesses, you know, some of us need to get out and catch flounder or do different things to be able to survive. And I just think that there's more than just us here that's having to kind of survive with nothing. And so we're getting punished, unfortunately, but we also, the broad spectrum of this, looking at it as, you know, you're helpful. You're helping us not, you know, have more than one case in Gulf County. There's a reason for that, and I know that it's for what you're doing. So it's kind of tedious for some of us, and we appreciate it again, but there's got to be a way to get these, either just like beach permits, but for us locals to be able to get going again, there's got to be a way. And 7 days is a far stretch for some of us, but if it has to be in order for it to open, we understand.
Thank you for your comments, and of course we're all very sympathetic to that. I would like to get some suggestions between now and next Tuesday's meeting that would somehow either create a permit for a local or Gulf County resident that's a commercial fisherman and or charter boat captain that makes a living on the water. If there was a way that we could accommodate them somehow, but I'm open to suggestions in that area. I'm not sure how we could do it without opening the whole thing, but I think there probably is a way. That's why exactly
Yes,
why I
sir.
want to wait another week and let's chew on some of these ideas.
Real quick before I just and reiterate that idea, most charter captains have their, you know, United States Coast Guard merchant license. And I don't know if there's a way to send that information in, email back a copy so they can put it in their window, their dashboard so that they can launch or whatever. But that's also, if they have credentials, they most definitely should be able to go out.
Okay, and of course, lucky for us at this time, we've got a retired FWC fellow on the commission, and he can, in the next 7 days, help us out a lot on which way we might want to go.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Any other comments? If not,
Rex, can y'all hear me?
yes.
This is Dusty May. Can you hear me?
Yes, sir.
Can y'all hear me? I'm talking on my phone and looking at you on my computer. I couldn't get my audio to work.
Okay. We can hear you on the phone.
Okay. This is Dusty May. I live in Port St. Joe. Was born here and 58 years ago, and craziest times I've ever seen. But I also own a business here. I'm down to about a half a day a week by order of the governor. And I just wanted to put a few ideas out there maybe for the city. First, thank you guys for everything you're doing. I know it's not easy doing all this, and I think what we've done so far has been admirable. Can y'all still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. However, I think as President Trump and the governor and everybody else is saying, at some point we need to start looking to the future and how we're going to get this show running again. And I just had a couple of comments I wanted to make towards that end. I think that one of the best things we could do is to start the opening of the boat ramp with locals only. Now, whether you want to make that state locals or county locals is going to be up to you. Obviously, the smaller the circle, the more difficult the enforcement. However, I do feel that in response to the city attorney's comments, is it against the law for me to go down there right now and use the boat ramp? I'm assuming it is, but I don't know that. It certainly seems that if we're able to enforce the closure with police tape and cones, we could also enforce a limited opening. I like the idea of putting a sign up maybe that says, using the boat ramp permits the city of Port St. Joe to run your tag. If you're found to be an out-of-county resident, you'll be receiving a fine or a notice to appear in the mail. And if police officers feel comfortable, they could put that also, a copy of that on the windshield. Again, I really think that once the word gets out that we're enforcing our policies, enforcement is going to be important, but most people are going to start obeying the rules. The last thing I wanted to bring up was this may be a great opportunity for the city to get serious about enforcing our boat ramp policies all over again. To me, the problem with boat ramp enforcement has always been us locals. It seems like most of us locals are willing to jump through a few more hoops now to use the boat ramp than we used to be. It may be a good idea to put the word out that on June 1st, we're going to start enforcing stickers again. And if you don't have a sticker, you're going to get a ticket. And this is going to make it easier for our local police officers to enforce boat ramp usage, because we need not only to open our economy again, but we need to start generating revenue out of this boat ramp, because we've got a lot of infrastructure improvements that need to be made around the boat ramp. Anyway, again, this is Dusty May. Those are just my comments. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much. That's good comments. That's more facts to add to our conversation between now and next Tuesday about how we want to handle it going forward. That's assuming that the commission wants to for it to remain closed for another 7 days and make a decision Tuesday night on how we want to go forward with the opening. Other comments? So that being said, we'll if it's the pleasure of the commission, we will need a motion to for the boat ramp remain closed for 7 more days.
So moved, Mr. Mayor.
There's a motion by Commissioner Ashbrook to have the boat ramp closed at Frank Bay Park for 7 more days. Is there a second?
Second for discussion.
Second for discussion by Commissioner Hoffman. Go ahead.
What about the idea of working, since we're here, in a special meeting? Would we be further ahead of the game if we worked on the protocol and the requirements that the attorney said we're going to have on Tuesday? What if we supported the idea of working on those items today? And we just agreed that the opening would be forthcoming Tuesday. And we went ahead and created the language now that we would then know, are we going to open it for only locals? Which I think that's where we're probably going to move ahead with. We could get our signs ordered by Tuesday. I would think we could have a local vendor equip us with signs, and then we would allow the newspaper to have the opportunity to put out what our intentions are, contingent upon those things falling in place. Instead of waiting till Tuesday and then working on solving the problem.
I follow what you're saying. Basically, you want to pretty much make a decision today on what we want to do next Tuesday, and let the paper, let everybody know what we're going to do.
Right.
And that gives the public, the paper comes out Wednesday evening, Thursday, gives the public 2 or 3 days to voice their opinion. And, you know, who knows, it might be a better option come up from the public than we've talked about today, but that would be hopefully easy enough to change it Tuesday, that we'd have something in place.
Right, because from what I'm gathering, and Clint, you can guide me in the right direction if I'm looking at it wrong, what we really need is a motion to extend the ruling or the special order that we made to close the landing. We take it a step further, and we have penalties that would come along with anyone that violated the special order.
Wouldn't necessarily have to vote on the penalty. You need to extend the closure for 7 more days. You just need to give me direction.
Yeah, I
And
think,
what we want to be put in the paper.
I think at this point, the motion is to close it for another 7 days, and I think we're probably going to agree on that. If we get that passed, then we sit here in session and go over what we want to do for the future. Is that?
That's fine. I just don't want to leave today when we could have took care of some more business today.
Gotcha.
And I don't want to hold up what the opening of the landing on
I think
Tuesday.
there'll be two major things to decide. Is it going to be state residents? Is it going to be Bell County residents?
He's gone.
That one. And the second thing would be, what's the penalty? Okay, the notice to appear. Notice to appear, and the fine is.
Right.
I don't know what I forgot. I read it, but I forgot what the counties is for being on the beach.
I imagine
Second agreement, $50 fine, up to 60 days in jail.
Something along those lines. Just
$50 won't be enough.
Okay.
a second degree misdemeanor, I think by statute, is taking
$1,000
minimum
fine,
that
60
there is.
days, up to 60 days in jail.
You can look that up.
Yeah,
Okay.
The only thing that like I said, the only thing that I have a problem with is how the police actually going to ensure that, you know, the Gulf County residents or the Florida residents, and would it be safe in doing that? You know, that's my only thing, because we're short of police officers as is. I mean, we're not short, we just don't have many. And they're coming to some phone calls on the north side, breaking up 20, 30 people in groups, you know. I think they had 2 or 3 phone calls this weekend. And that's my only thing. But what I also wanted to say while I'm on this is, I think we need to start writing citations for those grouping up and continue to group up without even being responsible of other people. So,
Yeah. All right, let's do this. The motion on the floor right now is to close the boat ramp for 7 more days. There's a motion and a second for discussion. If second stands as a second, we can vote on that, and then we can decide maybe which way we want to go. Your second stands. Any more discussion? All in favor of the motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same. Motion passes 5-0. Okay, now let's open the floor to these ideas about when we open the boat ramp, what are our policy going to be?
I'd like to hear from the chief as far as the enforcement mechanism, and I'd like to hear his views on the exposure risk officers based on statewide versus county residents only.
Okay, Chief, you'd like to come forward? We can work you over a little bit.
All of you make valid concerns, and I agree with what Eric said. I mean, right now, there's really 7 of us that are patrolling the city. And, 3 working today, 3 working tomorrow when these 3 working today are off. And so if one of them gets sick, chances are they're going to expose at least 2 others to that. And so anything we can do to minimize our interaction, we need to. And we've taken some measures to do that with calls, and y'all are all aware of that. To go along, we'll do whatever. It is easier to say, yes, that's a Florida tag, they're allowed to be here. I agree with that. The other issue that we need to address in whatever we do is, we wrote someone a notice to appear, the only one we've wrote so far, on the beach. And they own property in Highland View, but they're from Georgia. So we need to address that at the boat ramp, because what I don't want to happen is them say that's a Georgia tag, they give them a notice to appear, and then it's somebody's buddy who lives on the district.
You wrote them a notice to appear based on violation of the county or
Based on violating the governor's order.
governor's order.
252.
Because they're congregating more than 10.
Because they're on the beach.
I thought that was the county.
The county has an ordinance. We wrote it under the executive order. The statute number came from.
Chief, of course, first responders and especially law enforcement are getting admirable accolades, and you deserve every bit of it for enforcing the law under these bad circumstances. And I know you guys still enforce it, whether you're from Georgia, New York, or downtown Port St. Joe. That doesn't matter. That to me is not going to affect what you do. I mean, I know that you've got masks and you've got sanitizer and you're doing everything everybody else is doing, and we don't want to overly expose you or anybody else. But I guess what I'm saying is our law enforcement still have to enforce the law. And that's, now, spitting on the sidewalk is not as serious as some other things, 7 left. But irregardless, I think our job here today is to decide when we open the boat ramp, how are we going to enforce it? So it will be, we've got a small workforce, you do, and you've got a lot of things to do to keep peace in the city. So how do we balance that fine line between helping you guys and helping us too to give our folks some recreation, and as well as to keep folks from hot spots around the state and or country from coming here and exposing us. So let's try to figure something out, guys, while we're here.
Would it help, Chief, if we offered overtime at the current rate of overtime pay or off-duty pay, dual employment type situation, and the officer could choose which one they wanted? Either they did time and a half if they're over their hours, or we could offer them the going rate for dual employment and have them volunteer to work maybe Friday, Saturday, and Sunday at the boat landing.
If the boat ramp is open back up, those are gonna be the busy days, no doubt.
Right.
So we would need to figure something out for that, depending on how many people are showing up. I imagine once it's open, you're gonna have a bunch of people show up in the beginning because they haven't been able to go fishing for however long.
Chief, I got a question. What would be easier for you, would it be the entire, the state of Florida or Gulf County enforcing those?
It would be easier, just for an officer to ride by, it'd be easier if it was the state of Florida, because all they're looking for is a tag.
Okay.
If we say Gulf County residents, Port St. Joe residents, they're gonna have to run that tag. Not all tags have Gulf County on them or whatever.
I think, I feel that whatever is easier for our officers to operate and make it safer for them, I think, that's what I would recommend we do, but I'm just one voice on the board. That's just what my opinion.
But if we did go with local Gulf County residents only, I guess the question would be, how many local permanent Gulf County residents don't have a Florida tag? And I think the number there is going to be very, very small. And then we may offer a way to where they don't have contact with any city employee. Maybe they could call City Hall and say, well, I do live here, but I have a Georgia tag. I've lived here for a year. Now, it opens up the issue of why do you still have a Georgia tag? But let's not get into that, not get bogged down in the weeds. But if they had a way that they could show that they moved down here after the hurricane, let's say, to help us rebuild our city, their kids are enrolled in the schools, and they showed those things, we might could issue them through the mail a permit to put on their dash of their vehicle. And then if the officer pulls down there and sees this out-of-state tag, they could look on the dash and see that they're actually approved. But that would be the only way that I supported that option, is if it does not put a city employee in face-to-face contact with a line of people wanting a free permit.
There's a comment on Zoom.
Yes, sir. It sounds like a lot of confusion with that. Is there not a way to just actually go online at home? Everybody's at home stuck, working or using their internet. Can they not get a permit at home, print it out or something like that, so that it's not contact and there's not all of the side steps? If they haven't already done their tag, that would totally be on them. They should have already done that. That's just something else, to another loophole, another thing to jump through. But for those of us who have been here waiting and doing what we're supposed to be doing, there's got to be an easy way for us to be able to go online, print our permits, purchase them or whatever, volunteer to help at the boat ramp. I would, but there's got to be a way to mesh this down a little bit better first steps.
That would be an application process that we'd have to design, that would have your place on there for your Florida license tag from your car on there, so forth, so on. I mean, that's a great idea. I like the idea about being able to do things online if we can control it somehow. But that, you print it out, put it on the dash of your vehicle, but of course, the police would have to get out and look, or tape it to your back windshield or something like that. But
Yes, sir.
but anyway, that's just ideas we've discussed.
I do agree with Dusty's idea that maybe we should use this opportunity to revamp and look at our current way that we're giving out decals. I think we should have a different decal for someone that lives in the city or county. And then if someone come in and wanted to purchase a decal, that decal should be different from the one that we have been handing out for years for people that don't have to pay because they live in Gulf County.
different color.
Yeah.
I absolutely like that. And at one time we said, that, you had to have a decal to, utilize the boat ramp. Is that, Jim, is that, you recall that? Did we pass a,
The current policy is right now, you can be, if you're a Gulf County resident, it's free, and they're pre-numbered, 1 through 1,000, whatever the case may be. So if a Gulf County resident comes in today, they may be number 9, and then somebody from Georgia may come in and get one. They pay $50 for a year pass. It's the same color and everything, but it would be the next.
but what I'm saying is that if you do not have a sticker, you cannot launch your boat at Frank Bay Park Boat Ramp.
No, sir. The rule is right now you pay for the fee at the boat ramp itself. You have the box. What you do is you fill it out, and it's $10 per launch.
I'm very familiar with that, but I thought at one time we said no sticker, no launch, but that would,
The sticker
that-
means you don't pay the fee to launch.
Correct.
yeah, I know that too, but so the sticker thing not gonna really work
No, sir.
because anybody can use it whether you got a sticker or not.
Correct. Moving forward, it is a good idea for a situation like this. We could have pre-numbers for Gulf County residents or city, whatever you decide, Florida. But you could have a different color so you can figure out which ones are out of state, not possibly in counties. But that's easy enough. The problem is right now, it's not going to happen in this situation because we have a year's worth of stickers that are over the city now.
So I think, probably, what I'm hearing is we've got to decide, when we open it up, and I'm not saying next Tuesday we'll open it up. Next Tuesday, we're talking about throwing out the scenario for when we are gonna open it up, which would be, all I'm hearing is one side, the county residents only, and the other side, state of Florida residents. So we need to make a decision which way we want to go forward to help Clint out.
Like you said, I can write that ordinance up. Blank residents, you guys can fill in.
And I figure we can make that decision too, depending on, we may have a spike, in the virus.
There's no doubt, we may decide to go by the governor's closure, which is April 30th, is what he's.
Yeah, maybe do that.
So, I mean, there's a lot of scenarios that are out there that we can talk about. And, so, I mean, personally, I thought it'd be much easier to just do Florida residents and go from there. But there are a lot of hot spots around, in South Florida. There's a lot of coronavirus in Okaloosa County, if you really get down to it. So, it's all around us.
In Leon County, closest they are.
That's
150
correct.
as of today.
Yeah, we get a lot of Leon County residents come down here, so, there's a lot of scenarios out there. If we want to make a decision today, we can, it's up to you guys.
Mr. Mayor, I think we're doing a exceptional job as far as keeping things, keeping the virus down, and I think that eventually, like Mr. May said, eventually we're gonna have to ease this thing back open slowly. And one of the things I think will be the best is the boat ramp. But I don't want to jump out there in that water too fast either. So, but I think the easiest thing to do is let it be for all Florida residents, and I think it help our law enforcement out, and because we're not gonna stop people from coming in town. We're not gonna stop it. I mean, the Piggly Wiggly, therefore, go to the dollar store, therefore, Family Dollar, therefore. So I think what I'm trying to say is, let's make it easier for everybody. Let law enforcement do their job and enforce the rules, and we just keep doing what we're doing to try to protect our people.
Amen.
We're not gonna be able to put I wish we could put roadblocks out and stop people from coming in town. Look, we got a beautiful area we live in. People want to see it. They want to go out, walk on the walking trails and bike trails and enjoy our greenery and everything that we got. So it'll be be hard to try to stop. We're not gonna stop people from in Florida coming into Port St. Joe. It's just something that people have figured out that we got a beautiful area. They're coming. I see it all the time. And I think just make it easier for everybody. You know, let's allow it, just state of Florida tag and let police enforce it. I think it'll be real tough on them just to make sure that it's just only Gulf County residents that's at this boat. So whatever makes it easier for everybody, I think that'll be the best thing for us to do.
Well, since we do have free stickers for Gulf County residents, if we said, okay, we're gonna just do it for Gulf County residents, just go down to, City Hall or call them and get a sticker. You don't have a sticker on your car, you get a notice to appear. And I think that's what Dr. May was saying. It's an opportunity right now to let folks know that, look, if you're local or county, you don't have to pay anything, but you are going to have a sticker. And so that would make it easy for them to enforce, because that sticker would be in your back windshield. So we could make a motion and have it passed to have it open only for Gulf County residents if that's what we want to do. But those folks need to know that it is free to them, but they're going to have a sticker. And if you're a Gulf County resident without a sticker, you're going to get a ticket.
Sound good? Sound good?
We have to print new stickers, because the stickers that we currently use are identical to the person that lives in Atlanta, Georgia, that purchased it.
That is correct.
So,
yeah.
Mayor, could we go ahead at this time and just motion to separate or differentiate out-of-state tags from our free tags that you get in Gulf County? We could go ahead and motion that and just have staff print up 500 stickers and be prepared for next Tuesday.
Yes, yeah. You're just saying print up 500 stickers, and those would be for identifying Gulf County residents. Now, I don't know about other Gulf County residents that bought the old sticker, so that would be something that we have to make sure they know. Come get a new sticker.
I'd say, we've got a list, right, of the old.
We have everything. Anyone that comes in for an application, we have all those applications on file.
So we could automatically just resend those out then, Mayor.
Say again, Commissioner.
We could just automatically send the people who have one on file with us a brand new one if they're an in-county resident.
Yes. I don't know how many we've issued in the past. Does anybody on staff give me an idea about numbers?
12,000 people in the county. I'd say a few thousand,
Yeah, 3,000.
It'd be easy to go ahead and just hand them out again. I mean, give them to the residents again, put it on the website, let them know you can come get a new sticker. It's free for the county residents, right?
Yep.
And start from scratch.
Advertising.
Yeah.
the thing is, we got City Hall closed, that means we're going to have contact. It can be done.
Could they email in an application from online, and we could just start mailing them out to them, the new stickers?
I'll tell you where my thoughts are. And I realize it's not a perfect idea. My idea is to order signs and say the boat landing will only be utilized by permanent Gulf County residents. Second part of that sign will be, if you are not a permanent Gulf County resident, you'll be subject to either towing or a fine of whatever we decide on. Gulf County residents are going to have a Florida tag. If they don't, they should, unless they just moved here, less than 90 days, I believe, right? So they should have a Florida tag if they've been here. Then we utilize police department on how the police department would like to enforce that. It's easy if you have Alabama or Georgia, any non-Florida tag. They're not residents of Gulf County, not permanent residents anyway. And we can deal with them on either tow their vehicle or have a notice to appear. And then we also would understand that there's gonna be people that are gonna figure out a way to get a vehicle and launch even though they don't fall in there. That's just part of dealing with it. Law enforcement deals with it every day. And we don't get bogged down into stickers and all these other things. We just do pretty much what Franklin County does. Franklin County put out the word, if you're not a resident of Franklin County, and they added or on property there, I would oppose that. And they just passed their ordinance for their landing, and it seems to be working fairly well. And I think if we would see that we would have success
That was an
as well,
emergency ordinance.
as far as I know. Yeah.
So we could say what the fine's gonna be in the ordinance.
Yeah, and I would support a fine of somewhere around $500 on the first offense. That'll get a lot of people to take it.
I agree, I agree, I don't think it should be, I think it should be more than $50.
Yeah, $50 I would launch just because I'm thinking, well, heck, it's $10 anyway. I'll pay the $50 and launch my boat.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I'm not gonna pay 500.
No.
You know. That's my thought.
I'm good with the 500 too.
All right, Jim.
I was gonna say, and Mayor, what we can do in the interim too, we can go ahead and order up some new stickers for Gulf County residents. That way, anything in the future that you want to do, if you want it for just Gulf County, what we can do is we can have a red sticker or a purple sticker or something for Gulf County if you want to do it.
I mean, in the future, it may,
For whatever might come up.
it'll be good to have, and it's not that expensive, but listen to Commissioner Hoffman, your feelings is make the signs, this is permanent Gulf County residents only, all others will be subject to tow or $500 fine minimum.
And or leave it up to the police department, which route. I don't think we will have to be routinely towing vehicles, to be honest with you. But I think that if we can work out what we need to do with our attorney on following the
A
steps.
little leery about the police have leeway as to what laws being applied or what the penalty is.
Well, the penalty would be set by the city. It's just like when an officer decides, are you gonna get a written warning, are you gonna get a citation, or are you gonna get handcuffs? They deal with that every day.
Oh, certain things. Yeah.
I do know, talking to the chief about this issue of towing, and it was my idea at the last meeting to put the sign so you'd be towed at your own expense. Towing a truck and a trailer is difficult. You gotta have two trucks. I understand Mexico Beach tried that, and it was a nightmare for them. So I'm not sure we want to just stick with the fine instead of the towing. But
The towing is a deterrent, okay?
No doubt.
I didn't really want to admit this during the post meeting, but I'll admit it. We wouldn't be routinely towing vehicles, but when someone reads that their vehicle that they just drove from Dothan, Alabama down here to launch is subject to towing, it has an impact.
I like it. I do like it. I'm just throwing out the different scenarios. So anyway, it's a pleasure of the board to make a motion to direct the attorney to draft an ordinance about how we're going forward with the opening of the boat ramp. We want to do that today.
You know, I could draft several different versions. You know, Gulf County residents, state residents, second degree misdemeanor, $500 fine.
Let's get through those bushes and weeds now. I don't mind saying I'm good with permanent Gulf County residents only.
I am as well. $500 fine.
Make a motion.
Yes.
So moved.
Yeah, there's a
All
second.
right, there's a motion by Commissioner Lowry, second by Commissioner Hoffman to instruct the attorney to draft an ordinance that would say boat ramp will be open to permanent Gulf County residents only. All violators will be subject to a $500 fine. Am I reading that correctly?
That's what.
Okay, and that is when we decide to open the boat ramp. When we decide, it's not saying we're gonna open it after 7 days. We've got it closed till next Tuesday. Next Tuesday, we may decide to lengthen it till the end of the month. But is that?
Yeah.
Is that okay with you?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah,
Chief,
leave your options
so the
open.
motion and second, we're in discussion. Chief,
I'm good with everything you're talking about. I just want to make sure, and I just advised Mr. Anderson, we just want to make sure that Click Research is a mechanism for that fine to be paid if we get to that point. You know, is that something the city, is that going to be something the city collects? Is that going to be something Ms. Becky Norris collects at the clerk of court? We want to make sure all that's outlined.
very good, thank you.
It might be easier to do the notice of appeal than the second, second misdemeanor or something along those lines. But I'll look at your options.
Would we be able to go ahead and order the sign? Get that squared away, the language on the sign?
I would say, yeah, with this motion, we go ahead and make the sign whether we ever use it or not. I don't
Yeah,
know.
that's what I would hope we would do. Is get that.
That was one of my questions, Commissioner, because it's gonna take a couple of days to get it, but based on the language that I have right here, basically, we order a sign to say boat ramp open to permanent Gulf County residents only, all violators subject to a $500 fine.
That's what the motion says.
I'm a little nervous about specifically saying that right now, based on what the chief just said, the mechanism. That's always been kind of a problem.
You can research it.
Yeah, I mean, you exactly. They know what the motion says. Of course, we can't do anything that's going to violate the law as far as motion we pass. So that's where we are.
What about, so we're not gonna, do the sticker thing then, right?
Not at this time. The motion doesn't say that, but Jim's going to get some stickers printed, and at some subsequent meeting, we can announce that all Gulf County residents are going to have a sticker, or they're going to be fined.
Make sure those tickets purple, don't put red on. We will.
Yeah, I understand. Yeah, purple and gold preferably.
Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay. Any more discussion? Any more discussion? Anybody listening in on Zoom?
Mayor, I would just add that if we can get some sample drafts from our attorney, I wouldn't be opposed to having this meeting prior to the weekend if we wanted to have a meeting on Friday about it.
We can do that.
I just want a chance to look over what the ordinances look like.
Well, when you get your agenda Friday, you'll have all weekend for that.
Okay, I was just trying to get it open for the weekend, but that's fine. We can hold off till Tuesday.
Well, we've already voted to keep it closed for another week. Yeah, that's done. The ramp's gonna be closed one more weekend. That's already done, so. Any more discussion?
We just thank you. It doesn't matter weekend or weekday. We need it open just for work. That's awesome. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. It's getting closer. If we can get this virus out of here, we won't have to print up any signs or anything. We'll just open it up. Everybody go have a good time.
One thing,
We're still in discussion on the motion. Go ahead.
is it gonna be, all right, permanent Gulf County residents, but if you're a permanent Gulf County resident, there's a charter boat camp, you can be seen taking clients out like that.
Yes.
Because that's basically what she was asking.
We're dealing with the people that are launching the boat. So it would allow our local charter fishermen to take people on that trip.
From out of state.
No matter where they're from.
That's the way that I would understand it.
As long as they don't have,
I'd simply let them be.
what about,
Can I say
I want
something?
to be on a boat with folks from Louisiana or Georgia right now.
what about 10 or more? It can't be any more than 10 though, right?
Correct.
Can I say something?
Yes, go ahead.
Most of your charter captains right now are all joined together, talking amongst themselves behind closed doors, and they are all using precautions on talking to people. But the majority of your charter captains right now are getting support from locals that want to go out and go fishing with them, and they can't carry more than 6 passengers. So all of the boats around here right now are 6 passengers or less. And it's not a factor of any of them are going to take anybody from out of town, because they're smarter than that. I would hope most of them all that are talking amongst each other are saying, we have, locals here that can't go anywhere, but they are allowed to go out and hike and fish, but we can't put in a boat to take them. They want to support our local businesses, but they can't. So that's just where we're at.
Very good, thank you. Okay, any more discussion? All in favor, aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, motion passed 5-0. Okay, you got your marching orders, Mr. Attorney. Any more discussion on boat ramp or any other issue that anybody want to talk about this time?
Yes, man, I got it.
Go ahead, Commissioner Langston.
It's the same thing about gathering. I would like to, do we have to establish anything in order for our police officers to start writing citations? How do we do that, Clint?
If they're gathering of more than 10 people at a time, he's already issuing those appear based on the governor's order. Am I correct? Right. I don't think we have to do anything.
That doesn't sound like it.
If people are congregating of more than 10, you have the right to disperse them or pursuant to the governor's order.
I'm sick and tired of dispersing.
Oh, you're ready.
Let's go ahead and start writing some citation. I don't know if you do it to the resident, the person that resides there, or the people that's there, because it's dangerous. We need to start writing some citations.
That would be up to the chief and his officers, but if it looks like it's beginning to be a habit, that's right. I assume everybody in that group would get a ticket. Is that correct, Chief?
But the chief and I talk, it's the same group of people.
Okay. Yeah, write them up. I don't have a problem. I think our officers would have our full support on that.
The only thing that I'm saying that, you're making it bad for everybody else. And that's my concern.
Very good. Okay, nothing else. Motion to adjourn. So we adjourn. Thank you all for